Hi, hello, hello. You never know with these things whether anyone can hear you or you're actually live or just talking into thin air, which I probably am. But if you're there, thank you very much for coming along. My name's Gary. I'm a British voiceover coach, and this is my live Q&A here on this rather sunny Saturday in Hertfordshire, which is where I'm based. So yeah, fire away with your questions, and if you've got any, then just pop them along on the chat there. Should be along the side. And I'll try and answer them as best I can. Now, what I have been doing just before I came here to do this live was making myself a cup of tea. And if I take my own advice, it's always don't have caffeine just before you do a voiceover. Now, I know I'm not doing a voiceover specifically. It's just a YouTube video. But there are some alternatives, and I can highly recommend this one, which is my beverage of choice for today, which is called, in fact, you probably can't see it because it's backwards, because for some reason the webcams invert it. So if you couldn't see that, it's called Pucker, and it's actually turmeric gold. This is not product placement, by the way. It's just my opinion and just my view, but it's very good and quite soothing on the throat. So forgive me if I just take a quick slurp of it. I don't know whether you can see that. It's quite a disgusting sort of color, but it's supposed to be golden. I'm not sure. It's more like mud. But hang on a second. That's actually quite nice. But I find with these kind of specialty teas, you've really got to let them, as we would have said in Nottingham, mash or brew. You've got to let them kind of soak in. Oh, and hi, Nick. Hello, Nick. Thank you very much. And Nick is there. So it was the right way round. Okay, right. Well, I get a different image, obviously, to you. So it was right. Oh, that's useful to know for the future. Okay, so it's called Pucker. There it is. I mean, you can always use other stuff. I mean, quite well-known ones are peppermint. Very good, very refreshing. Or I've got here another one. I'll obscure, like they used to do on Blue Peter. I'll obscure the name just in case YouTube accuse me of product placement. That's strawberry and raspberry, that one. I had that once, and that's quite nice. A bit weak, though, I find. So McDonald NK. Hello, Gary. Hello, McDonald NK. And nice to have you along. In fact, I'm not using any lights today. I'm just using natural sunlight, and you can probably see behind me on that side that I'm getting reflections from the cars outside, so they're kind of beaming back. So I hope they don't dazzle you. Probably dazzle me and blind me in the with my glasses. Anyway, this session is all about a Q&A, really, and it's anything you have to talk about in terms of, or want any questions answering in terms of voiceovers. Just a quick shout out before I carry on. Hey, Stephen Jobson here. Hello, Stephen. I know you're in York. All these lovely teas can you have if you aren't recording on the same day. You can have if you aren't recording on the same day. I see what you mean. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, you can use them for leisure activities too, as a leisure beverage. Yeah, certainly. McDonald NK says, I'm a big fan. All right. Me too, as well. I'm a big fan of yours, McDonald. I'm sure it's NK McDonald rather than the other way around. Seems rather impersonal calling you McDonald MK. Anyway, let me start with one of the questions that I've been collating over the last few weeks, really. And this one is from Kelly. And she says, I've yet to land a role as a voice actor. I'm constantly putting blocks in my way to success by telling myself that I have to have excessive amounts of expensive equipment, etc., to be successful. And this is a common theme, really, that people constantly put blocks and obstacles in their way. They make excuses basically for not doing voiceovers. I think we all do it. I mean, we do it in various walks of life, but particularly when you're doing something new and very different, like voiceovers, if you haven't actually done them before. And I would say that really try and overcome those obstacles. Easier said than done, of course. But what I would say is you don't need expensive equipment. So to begin with, I mean, I'm using, admittedly just for videos, but I'm using this mic here, which is an MXL Tempo, and you can pick it up for less than £100. I did a video last week actually testing it. And comparing it, actually doing a sort of A/B test with this versus my kind of main posh mic, which is my Audio-Technica 4050, and that's a £600 mic compared to this, which is less than £100. In fact, I think you can pick it up now for less than £80. And I thought this one anyway held up really well compared to that one. And I'm not saying it's the same, of course it's not. And you're going to have much more detail and finesse on something like an XLR mic, particularly if you get a good quality one. But I think as a starting point, and Kelly's issue really is that she's got herself into this kind of trap really, where she's thinking, oh, I've got to have expensive equipment. And you can go on a lot of sites and there will be people reviewing expensive equipment, and there's some great equipment out there if you can afford it, but a lot of people can't. And I think the point of entry for voiceovers is now much lower than it was, and that means in some ways it's kind of easier to come in at the bottom rung of the ladder, and that's no bad thing. And I say, if you want to get going with voiceovers, just do it. Get yourself a USB mic. You could have something like the Blue Yeti, very famous mic. You see a lot of podcasters using it, and it's a fantastic mic. Probably, I don't know, some people would say slightly better than that one. It's more expensive than this one. It'll cost you about £120. And in fact, I was looking on Amazon the other day, because of the current situation, everyone's in lockdown and doing Zoom and everything, and everyone's taking up a podcast, and they were just completely sold out. Although one of my students tells me that Curry's has the Blue Yeti. So if you're in Britain, going onto the Curry's site might be a good option. So maybe some places which you didn't expect to sell microphones are now selling them again, possibly because of the current situation with the virus and everything. But Kelly, you can start at any point, and I would always say just go for it. Grab yourself that mic, and get started. Do it. And start with something like Fiverr. It's completely free to join, people per hour, another place to get started on. And these are sites that are completely free to use. And they're great ways to get onto the first rung of the ladder, which is what you're trying to do. So don't let equipment stop you. Now, one of the things when it comes to equipment, of course, is the surroundings. So if you've got cheap and cheerful equipment, and even if you've got expensive equipment, actually, to be honest, you need some good acoustics. But again, you don't need to go out and buy Auralex foam or anything like that. Anything will do that's got soft furnishings, really. So duvets are fantastic. Also curtains. Got some quite thick lined curtains here, and they'd be absolutely ideal. They've got a good lining in them. Sometimes my cat pees on those, though, so glad it's not smelly vision. I tell you what's really good, actually, if you have got a bit of a budget, and that's Surge. Now, Surge, I think it's spelled Serje, I think, is theatre curtain, basically. Now, it is a bit pricey, but it's really thick. And you know how when you go into a theatre, even if it's a large auditorium, it sounds deadened and it sounds quiet. And that's because they're using a lot of heavy drapes, and Surge is fantastic for that. It's really good. Again, Amazon sell it. It is quite pricey, but it's thick and is as good as something like a blanket or curtains or indeed duvets, really. So if you can get some old stuff, maybe if a theatre is throwing some old Surge out, then that's great. Or if you, like I say, if you've got the budget for it, then something like that draped over. What you could use is just a clothes horse or something, that you hang your clothes on. And you can get like tabletop ones or longer ones. And you could just put that around your mic and then chuck this stuff over, chuck the Surge on, or your lined curtains or your duvets. And you've effectively got yourself a booth. So Kelly, my advice is just go for it. Don't let anything like that hold you back. You mustn't let anything like that hold you back. Let's have a look at the questions. Hello, Gary. I don't know if you remember me. This is from Ben Wake. Trained with you 3 years ago. I do, Ben. And I'm now a full-time multi-award nominated VO. Fantastic. Thanks for the help in launching my career. Great info as always. Well, thanks very much, Ben. Thanks for letting me know. And it just goes to show that it's possible. I always say it's a mixture of talent. You do need some talent. I mean, it would be ridiculous to say you can just get started without any talent. You do need something there because you're selling a service, aren't you? And you've got to be able to do it. But you can learn to get better, of course. That's the other thing. So talent and tenacity, just keeping on at it and not being put off. I think most people will say to you, look, over the years, I've been rejected far more times than I've been accepted. And if you can just keep going, then that's great. And Ben's a prime example. Nick actually is also a good example. And also Stephen, who's commenting earlier. And what does Nick say here? I've got the Blue Yeti mic, still serves me well after 5 years. It's really good. I probably need a better studio space though. Right now I'm using a duvet over my head, which will be very effective, but it's got a big downside. And that is you can get the rustle. If you move your head around, you can hear it. Sometimes if your mic's quite sensitive, it'll pick up the sound of your hair, or in my case, lack of hair, rustling on the top of or on the bottom end of the duvet. So not ideal, Nick. Go and get yourself something. Get yourself some surge curtain or something. You can get little screens that go round the mic. And you can actually get something that goes over your head. Now, if you get time, just Google ISO Vox. That's ISO, and then Vox as in VoiceOver VOX. And it's really expensive. Again, this is not product placement. It's just me talking about it. And basically, it's, as far as I can tell, it consists of cushions, like seat cushions from your sofa or something, sewn together to create this box that fits on your head. It's got flaps. It's got a flap at the back, flap at the side, and it's got lights in and a special hole for your mic to go through. And I have heard on YouTube, I've heard some of the results, and they're very impressive, actually, very, very good. A couple of downsides, though. The first one being price. It is, I think, 800 quid. So really, really pricey, but it's very, very portable. So it can go where your mic goes. You don't need to have a big proper booth to go in. But I think the other problem would be in hot weather, or if you're claustrophobic, it would be very, very, very oppressive, I think, to be in there. But some people swear by it. And apparently it's very good. So something to think about. And I think one or two other companies are doing a similar thing. But again, if you don't fancy having a box over your head, I mean, I'm simplifying it, of course. I'm giving it a rather crude representation, but that's basically what it is and what it consists of. In fact, Ben says, started with a Yeti and a blanket fort. Yeah, I suppose a fort, and now work out of a Studio Bricks booth. They're really good, actually, with a Sennheiser 416. I don't know that mic, actually. Sennheiser are a good make. Is that a condenser mic, Ben? I assume it is. It sounds impressive anyway. And a fort, you can make yourself a little den and go in there and do your voiceovers there. So it's, like I say, it's all doable. We'll probably come back to that later. Right, I've got another question here from Rachel. She says, I'm gearing up to doing my first auditions for Mandy.com, and they're asking for cover letters. What are they expecting, please? Now, this question comes up quite a lot. And it sounds, again, this sounds a bit daunting in a funny sort of way. And cover letters, it implies that you're doing a letter like you're applying for a proper job. If you were doing a job, I don't know, an office job or whatever, you would put a cover letter in, wouldn't you, with your CV? So it goes cover letter, cover note, and CV. And we're always told, aren't we, by careers advisors that you've got to sell yourself and so on, and make it detailed and put it all on one page and so on. and you say what you've done and what you're good at, how you can help that company, and so on. I think that's very, very difficult to do with these online marketplaces. I'll be honest with you. Now, some of them, like Voice123, voices.com, and so on, I've seen recommendations from experts who say, you should treat it as if you're applying for a normal job, and you should say, well, this is how I can help you with my voice, and so on, and really sell yourself. But I think, to be honest, most of us can't do that. I can't sell myself. I'd sort of say, well, I'm no worse than anybody else. That kind of thing wouldn't get me anywhere. So, and I think even more importantly, clients just haven't got time to read through a load of blurb that you've put, however beautifully crafted it is, and you've waxed lyrical on there. I just don't think they've got time to look through that kind of thing. And I think they just want to scan through very, very quickly. And they don't want a CV, or, they don't want a resume or anything like that. What they have got is time to just scan very quickly. So you want to be really factual with what you're putting on there. And I would put things like your turnaround time. So that's how long it's going to take you to do a piece of work. And you could say, well, I'm going to be 24. I could take 24 hours for this. I could do this job for you in 24 hours or 48 hours. And I would also put if you're charging anything extra. So usually with these sites, there's like your headline rate, your basic fee, and you'd put down, I'm charging £200 or 50 quid or whatever it is. And then that's it. But in the cover note, what you can say is, okay, it's 100 quid, but if you want me to do pickups, it's an extra 25% of that. So it's an extra £25 or whatever. Or I'll do a couple of pickups and retakes for you for free. You might want to include those. Now, you can't in some ways, although a lot of the sites like Mandy have a template and they say, just write your cover note once and then you can store it, which is great. But it means that then you're using that cover note for absolutely everything. And you can't really, because every job is different. So you might be doing a very long job, in which case you couldn't do a total retake for nothing. You'd have to charge. Likewise, a very high paid job, you may want to give unlimited retakes. You might think, well, this sounds like a fantastic client. I'm going to be paid a lot of money here. Plus there's the chance of some repeat work, which is like gold dust. I'm just going to say, look, it's a short job anyway. I'm going to just offer you unlimited retakes on this, which you might want to do. But you've got to be careful with that, because you don't want to offer unlimited retakes when it's a poorly paid job or a low paid job, and perhaps it's quite long, because you're going to end up working for nothing basically over time. So judge everything on a case-by-case basis, on a job-by-job basis, and that will give you a better perspective. So those are the kinds of thing I would put in. I mean, you could put, some say, look, what I would do is put in your equipment, say what you've got equipment wise. But again, in my experience, a lot of clients just don't know what that means. They're not experts. I mean, some will be. And if you're working for a studio, they may want to know, or some media people, they may be across the mics and everything and know what's what. But a lot of clients just don't know that, and they're looking to you to do it. And if you say, well, I've got a Neumann U87 microphone, expecting them to be impressed, that's like £2,000 worth of mic, the Rolls Royce of our industry, I guess, when it comes to recording. A lot of clients will go, I don't know what that means. It doesn't mean anything to it. The only thing that means something to me is the sound, what you sound like and what the audio's like. That's far more important, and I think that's the case. So again, with your cover notes, keep it brief, keep it really factual, and don't go on and on and on, because I don't think clients do look at those. In fact, I did talk to one client a few years ago, and he was saying that he never looked at the cover notes at all, which is really disappointing. So a lot of people will be really kind of kicking themselves thinking, I spent all that time. It's more important to just put your stuff down very briefly, very factually, and get it sent off quickly. Don't hang around working on the cover notes. So hope that answers your question, Rachel. I've got a long one here from Colin. And he says, hello, I'm Colin. Hello, Colin. And after I was asked to record some telephone voicemail messages at work, I decided that voice acting was something I was interested in. Please, could you advise me how to go about finding out, A, if I'd be any good at it, B, whether I could build up over the next 5 years or so to the point where I could replace my income? So a bit of a big ask in 2 parts there. Would you be any good at it? Well, in fact, first, just going back on your first bit, Colin, about doing telephone voicemail messages at work, that is a really important part of voiceovers. It's called IVR, which is interactive voice recording. And anyone will tell you who's in the industry that there's quite a bit of IVR work, on hold phone messages and so on. Sometimes they have little commercials in them that you might be asked to do. And it is a pretty big area. So that's fantastic. It's great news on your part that you've got a bit of experience. You could even put that down as being your experience. And then what's your other question? So would I be any good at it? I think that's I can't tell from your email. It doesn't really tell me very much. Of course, you don't know until you've had a go. Could I be any good at it? Hang on. This calls for a slurp of turmeric tea while I have a think. Hang on a second. Just interrupting myself. Drew F says, just want to say thank you for the content. Oh, that's kind of you. Been a voiceover artist part-time for 3 years now, and your videos have helped. That's really kind of you. Cheers, Drew. Much appreciated. So, Colin, you can't tell until you've had a real go at it yourself. And it's one of those things that you don't know until you've done it. And you can't tell from someone writing something down and saying, am I going to be any good? Who knows? The only way you do know is to actually get out there and like I say, do the auditions. And also, let's face it, you're going to get better and better. It's no good. People sometimes ask a very binary question and make it very black and white. And they say, will I be good at voiceovers or am I not? Am I suitable for voiceovers or am I not suitable? Either or. There's nothing in between. And it's kind of a bit of I don't mean to be rude, but it's a bit of a nonsense question, really, or piece of string question, because you can't really answer it. Because I always assume that when you're starting out, and this applies to all of us, you probably aren't going to be that good, and you can only get better. Is my philosophy. And when I started as an announcer on a TV channel called Central TV, which is based in the Midlands, way back in the midst of time, back in the 1980s. And a few people have managed to find little clips of me and put it up on YouTube, which is all very embarrassing. It's like your past coming back to haunt you. And most of them, of course, I absolutely cringe at. And the only thing I sort of admire about them is that I had a huge amount of hair, it seems, but I don't know where that's gone. But other than that, performance-wise, it's just, for me anyway, personally, you just think, oh my goodness. And a lot of it, and sometimes it's just voiceover stuff as well. And a lot of it is me trying to be a voiceover artist. And I can hear it. And I was in my early 20s, and a young lad, fresh from university, my first ever job apart from working in a newsagent. It's my kind of first proper job. So I did incredibly well. I had a really, really good break. And I was lucky in that sense. But I was really trying to be a voiceover artist. And I can hear it sometimes when I play those old recordings. I can hear that I'm trying to be a bit like that because it's a bit more manly, and all the voiceover artists around all talk like that. So I was trying to be basically something I wasn't. And I think it highlights something in your own personal voiceover journey, which is that you're coming to terms with your voice and learning to accept it for what it is. You may want to be Morgan Freeman, but look, you ain't going to be, because he's taken already. Perhaps Morgan Freeman wants to be you. You don't know. And what you've got, your voice, your natural voice, is what you use. It's what you're selling in voiceovers. And if you can in some ways get in contact with that voice, and it's hard because you've got to record yourself, play it back and listen, and keep doing that. Go through that process, record yourself, play it back and listen. And at first, if you're not used to hearing yourself, it will sound pretty awful to you, because we're listening to ourselves inside out. We've got our cochlea and our eardrums are buried deep in our skulls. So the sound we hear is not the sound that everyone else hears. And that's why when you first play yourself back, you think, that cannot possibly be me. How can that be me? I don't sound like that at all. But it is, of course. And the rest of the world hears you like that, but you don't. You hear yourself in a very different way. And I think it's kind of getting over that hurdle and saying to yourself, yeah, that's what I sound like. There's nothing else I can do about it. But learning to appreciate it, and learning to, I'm sort of a bit reticent at using the word, but learning to love your own voice. Now, I don't mean love it in any kind of narcissistic way, but kind of just appreciate that that's what it sounds like. And nobody else sounds exactly like you. That's why you can have voice print security technology, isn't it? It's because every single voice in the world is unique. There will be people who sound a little bit similar to you. Of course there will. But when you boil it down, everything that you have in your voice, everything it's made up of, so that's your accent, no accent, it's the tonal quality of your voice, so it's the physiology of your larynx as well, your build, your social peer group pressure, your socialization process, how you went through that, your education, where you came from, the emotional scars and so on you have or don't have. All of that goes into this amazing thing, which is your voice. That means that you can pick up the phone and you can talk to someone who hasn't spoken to you for ages, years even. They'll go, it's you, I can tell instantly. You don't have to introduce yourself. And that's because our voices are unique. And learning to appreciate the wonder of that, really, the wonder of your own uniqueness, is a really important step in voiceovers. And really, you can't do anything until you've done that, until you've taken that first step and said, this is my voice and this is what I'm going to sell. Like it or lump it, this is it. So, Colin, it's a very long-winded answer to your half of your question. And the answer is, of course, we don't know. We don't know if you would be any good at it, but learn to come to terms with your voice and learn to be good at it. Don't accept second best from yourself. Learn to get better and better and better. Training, you don't have to train with a coach particularly. If you do, that's great. We love it when people come along, but you can learn yourself. There's bags of online material. I mean, loads of people out there. You may know Bill DeWeese, who does some fantastic videos. You can learn a lot about life from that guy as well. He's really good. And there are others as well that are up there. And David H. Lawrence, the 16th, I think it is. Again, very good voiceover coaches. And what you'll notice about those people is they're experienced themselves, but they don't boil it all down to the sound of your voice. Very little is due to the sound of your voice. It's all about the things that go around it, your reading skill, your marketing, how you sell yourself as a business, how you approach the whole thing, your attitude of mind. All of that is important and is part of the journey, your own personal voiceover journey. Just saw a question come up there. I have an accent somewhere between South African and British English. Would there be a market for that? Do you know what? There's a market that was from Jan, I think it is, or Jan du Plessis. There's a market for every voice. In fact, interestingly, accents are in the ear of the beholder. And you might think you've got a bit of a South African / British accent, but someone else could hear it and they'll go, you're an Aussie, aren't you? And that often happens. You may have had that happen to you. So I've got a fairly neutral voice now, but I've got a bit of a Nottingham twang, bit of an East Midlands accent. And I remember going to California once, and I was chatting to someone, and they suddenly turned around to me and said, "What part of Denmark are you from?" I said, "This is a Nottingham accent. It's not Copenhagen." So it's all in the ear of the beholder, really. How people perceive your voice to be. What's any more questions there? I've lost one there. But anyway, let's. Someone said, "What's the best site to start with?" I saw that come up earlier, and it depends. I think the important thing to remember about VoiceOver websites. So these are the places where you get work, basically. And if you're not familiar with them, they are like automated agents. Except unlike an agent, they're not representing you. So if you had agency representation, that agent would be your representative, basically, and they would help you. In theory, anyway, although get a whole bunch of voice actors in the same room together, and the one topic of conversation they'll all agree on is, "My agent is rubbish. I haven't had any work for the last 6 months," or whatever. It's a kind of common theme, and in acting as well. It's very, very difficult to get an agent. If you're starting out, it's almost impossible, I think, to get an agent unless you've got something that is very different that they haven't got on their books. But if you get some work first and then go along to an agent and say, "Look, in the last year, I've done an IVR on whole phone message, I've done an audio book, I've done a local radio commercial, I've done some corporate and e-learning stuff." If you then present them with something, they can see that you yourself can earn some money, and that's really useful from their perspective. They can think, okay, they can earn money themselves from their own endeavors. We can hopefully get them some work as well. So the best sites to start with, it depends. Just going back to the types of VoiceOver website that are out there, jobs website, they come in two formats. There are what are called the pay-to-play sites. Now, these are where you pay a subscription and they won't take any commission. So you pay your money, either monthly or annual sub, and the money that you pay effectively will help funnel projects towards you. Now, remember, these are not jobs you've got. These are jobs that you could get. So it's important to bear that in mind. And a lot of people resent paying the subscriptions because they think, well, I'm paying to audition, which in some ways you are, but that's the modern world of voiceovers, really. And so you have to audition, and you might have several competitors. So if you're going, in my case, for example, British male voice, if you're going for that, then you're competing with other British male voices along the way. So always remember that. But their big selling point is they don't take any commission from you. You get to keep all your money. Now, the other sort are the freelancer sites, and these work in reverse, really. They've got a different business model whereby they will effectively allow you to get the work, audition for it, get the work for free, and they'll then skim off commission, usually in the range of about 15 to 20%. So roughly the same that an agency would charge, actually. So going back to the pay-to-play sites, typical ones, Mandy.com, of course, we've spoken about them, based over here in the UK. I think they're international now as well. But also Voice123, based over in San Francisco, I think. Voices.com, based in Ontario in Canada. Of course, it doesn't matter where these sites are based, because their role is to unite voice talent with VoiceOver client. And so you could be based in Birmingham, United Kingdom, but your client could be in Birmingham, Alabama. It doesn't matter, really. So those are the pay-to-play sites. And then the freelancer sites, Fiverr, of course, the most famous, but also People Per Hour. And there's one or two others as well. Upwork used to be completely free, but I don't know now whether you have to buy little tokens to do it. Perhaps someone can fill me in on that. But there are one or two of those sites around. There aren't as many, I don't think, and aren't as many as the freelancer sites. So if you're saying what is the best site to join, it depends really. If you've got the budget, I'd join one of the pay-to-play sites, and I'd join the freelancer sites as well. But it's really a kind of, in a way, setting yourself up on as many different sites as possible, even as a free member, because it's all about ubiquity. You want to be all over the place. You want to be all over the internet, so that when someone's typing in American female voice, then that's you come up. And if you can get on as many databases as possible, and most of them have a loss leader where they'll allow you to be allow you to have a free profile forever and upload your demos, or at least one demo. So just go for it. So the answer is upload yourself to all of them, basically, as many as you can. I had a second half, didn't I, to Colin's question. Could I build up over the next 5 years or so to the point where I could replace my income? Now, that's a very interesting one, because it depends. I don't know what your income is, Colin. You may own £250,000 a year. I don't know. And if you do, well, you're going to have your work cut out to match that in voiceovers, unless you become a big star, of course. It's difficult to say. I mean, I do have a few students, or former students particularly, who have got to that lovely, happy tipping point. And they're in that nice dilemma where they're at a point in their lives, and that's important, whereby they're earning enough doing voiceovers that they can give the main job, the day job, up. Now, of course, it entirely depends on your personal circumstances. So if you are, if your work's going badly, if you're having a terrible time at work, the overtime's finished or whatever, of course, at the moment, have you been furloughed and so on, the voiceover side may be equal or even slightly ahead in terms of earnings compared to your proper job, in which case you might think, now's the time to jump ship and go and do it. The answer to your question, Colin, is briefly, yes, you can. It can replace your income, and you can do it full time. Most people, I think, start out doing it part time. And I always say, don't give up the day job just yet. If you're lucky enough to have a job, don't give that up just yet, because you can't rely solely on voiceovers when you're starting out, and you'll be putting enormous pressure on yourself to do it. I occasionally get someone who ring me up or send me an email or whatever and say, I desperately want to pay the rent or whatever. I think I should do voiceovers. And I'll say, well, what have you done so far? They say, I haven't done anything. Train me quickly, and I want to start earning money. I'm desperate for it. And those are very sad stories, really. And I always say, don't do it. Go and do something else. If you want instant cash, go and do something else that you can do straight away. Something more conventional. You don't want to leap into voiceovers because it requires investment. The other thing to remember is that voiceovers they're much more about the business of selling. You're selling your voice, and you're running a business. So sometimes people I think they take the wrong kind of point of view when it comes to getting work, and they'll say, oh, I haven't been employed yet, I haven't got a job. And although that's strictly true, you are looking for a job, I think it's better to see it the other way around, that you're selling your services. And that's very important. Funny 5 minutes says, in response to Colin's question, would going on a VO course get him the feedback he needs? Yes, it would, on whether to commit time and effort to voice acting. To some extent, yes. I mean, you're right, funny 5 minutes. It sort of would. And I know what we do at our sessions is obviously give you lots of pointers and help you to improve. But I never say to that person, yes, you can do it, no, you can't. Again, it's not a binary answer. You can't say yes or no. Yes, you're going to earn £10,000 next year, or no, there's no way, give it up, you're terrible. You can't do that. And it would be cruel to do that because you may be being dishonest. You have to remember that a large part of voiceovers is subjective. So just see it from the client's point of view. They may hear you and think you've got the best voice they've ever heard. Think, wow, she's fantastic. What a brilliant voice. Totally inappropriate for our job. We don't want to use her. But she's got a great voice. Lovely. Might use you next year. So there's a huge subjective element involved. And also, you can't say to a coach, can I do voiceovers? Can't I do voiceovers? All the coach can do, and all I do with my students is say, look, this is where you're at the moment. This is what your reading skill is like. And remember, voiceovers are mostly about being able to read a script and deliver the lines. If you were to say to me, just put me on the spot and say, what skills do you need to be a voiceover artist? I would say, you need to be a great reader. You need to be able to read out loud and make it sound like you're not reading. That's your ultimate aim. And that's the bit I think most people can get better at. There are some people who are fantastic sight readers, and that's great. That gives them a head start. The rest of us, and I'm not a great sight reader at all. I have to really work at the script and just keep doing it, basically. And the other core skill you need is the ability to take direction from your producer, from your director, from your client directly. So that when they say, can you slow this script down? You do. When they say, could you emphasize this word, but not that word? You can do that as well. And you're like an instrument in the orchestra to a large extent. It's almost like, imagine you were the piccolo in the orchestra, and the conductor said, I want you to be andante. Is that slower? I think it is. And allegro is faster, isn't it? So I want you to be andante now. And then the piccolo didn't do that, but carried on being allegro. That would kind of ruin the whole thing. The whole point of the conductor and the piccolo player, piccoloutist, is that they respond to what the conductor is asking. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't work. And of course, in voiceovers, it doesn't work. They say, could you slow this down a bit or be a bit less dramatic? And you do that, and the client goes, nah, that didn't work, did it? Let's go back to how we were, or let's try it a bit quicker, or let's try it a bit more like this, or let's emphasize that word. Your role as the voice actors, the voiceover artist, is to give them what they want and provide them with that. I think that's the important thing, and to do what they want. Doesn't matter if it doesn't work, like I say, but it does matter that you're able to respond to it. So again, a very long-winded answer to your question, 45 minutes. A coach should never say, and I'm sure most good coaches will never say, yes, you can do it. No, you can't. And in my own experience, I've had people along who've had fantastic voices. They've been really good, great readers, beautiful sounding voices to my ears anyway, and never gone on and done anything. Never done anything. And they sometimes come back to me and say, oh, I never did anything, Now, sometimes, of course, life can get in the way. And voiceovers are a very human thing. And I think sometimes life does get in the way. People go off and get married, they have babies, they get divorced. Sadly, they get ill, or they go off around the world when you could go around the world, or they get a new job or whatever. Or sometimes, this is also the case, fear sets in, and they're gripped by fear, even though they're quite talented and even though they could certainly give it a go. And that's also a very sad sort of situation, because you don't want that to happen. And it sort of takes us back to the first question we have from Kelly, who was saying, I'm kind of daunted by all the expensive equipment and blah, 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 blah. It's almost that sort of I'm not worthy kind of thing, but you are, because your voice is unique. So here we go. We've got a thing. We've got a question here from Odd Thing. What would be the best company for sound absorbing foam? Right. Okay. Well, there's a company called Auralex, who are probably, I would say, one of the big companies, but there are quite a few companies around. So Auralex are good. They're quite pricey, and you may find you can get some cheaper foam that's just as good. Don't use egg boxes, though. I did a video not so long ago about not using egg boxes. A friend of mine and I, years ago, he was setting up a studio in his mum's dining room, and we decided that egg boxes would be the thing because the shape looks perfect, doesn't it? So we spent one Sunday just sticking egg boxes all around his mum's dining room, and we thought, this looks fantastic, really pro, and it's cost us nothing. And we recorded, and it sounded terrible, really bad. And that's because the conical shapes are perfect for breaking up sound waves, but the material, that cardboard paper mache type material, is completely wrong. And it sounded like we were in a giant egg box. So foam is very good, but like I say, you can use things like carpets and curtains. Some people use carpet tiles, actually. If you've got some quite thick carpet tiles, they're great. Or, like I say, serge material. Someone said, think that might be me. Don't know what that means. So anyway, there's lots of stuff around, but Auralex are well known, but they are quite pricey. So there are other companies that do it. So just kind of Google it, look on Amazon, obviously your first port of call, but go to some of the other sites as well. A site I use, a German company called Thomann. Probably mispronounce that. The German viewers will be going, no, it's not pronounced like that. Or Thomann, very good, and they deliver certainly to Britain. So they often have some kind of own branded stuff, which I think is called T-Bone, and that's very good. I'm not sure whether they do foam, but there are others, other companies out there as well. So just have a look, and what you're looking for is thickness, so it's nice and thick, and you're looking for the shape as well. So sometimes they can be like slatted shapes. I'm not sure that's as good as conical shapes, because the conical points will break up the sound waves, which is what you want to do. If you are doing makeshift stuff, make sure that it's permeable. So you want to have duvets and so on, or even if you put cushions around. If you had some cushions that were kind of, if they were leather, say, or plastic particularly, not saying you'd have plastic cushions, but you might have, that might, and the surface might not, I'm not sure whether leather is permeable. I would have thought it wouldn't be really, and that will bounce back the sound wave. So although it's nice and squashy, it wouldn't necessarily be conducive to voice recording. So, I was explaining to someone the other day why that is, why we have to have sound deadening around. And there is a misconception that it's about keeping external noises out. That's sort of a secondary effect, but it's very difficult in a domestic environment to keep all noises out. You've got dogs barking, it depends where you live, of course, but even if you live in the countryside, you might have sheep out there barring. And where you live is going to determine the sound. So you might be on a busy road or whatever, or the kids might be running around and so on, or next door mowing their lawn or something. And to some extent, you've got to work around those sounds because you're living in a house and you're using your house as a studio. It wasn't meant to be a studio. It's meant to be a place to live. So you're adapting all that. And so really with sound, you're trying to keep noises out, but it's very difficult. The main reason you have these soft furnishings is because it removes the reverberation. And unfortunately, what happens is if you're in an echoey room like a bathroom or a kitchen, your voice will echo all over the place. Obviously, you sound like I'm over here somewhere. And the effect of that will be to make it quite displaced and unfocused. When you're listening as the consumer, as the listener, it sort of sounds, especially if you're on headphones or decent monitor speakers, it sounds like you could be over there or even in the next room, even though they're close to the mic. So what we're trying to do is to lessen that effect so that all the reverberation is taken away and it just focuses the voice singular. So it's just your voice only, and that's all we hear, not your voice repeated and echoed. So I think that's an important point. Right, let's go on to another question. We've got Jolien, who says, I wanted to ask a quick question. regarding commercial and broadcast rights. If a company approaches me and would like to use my voice in their stores, does this fall under either of those rights, and should I charge extra? And if so, how much should I charge? And Jolien was saying this job was found on Fiverr. Now, this is a really intriguing question, actually, and it is something that I don't think there's any straight answer to. We often talk about broadcasting rights, and certainly on sites like Fiverr, you can add in extra money for yourself as broadcast rights. Now, traditionally, in the olden days, broadcasting was TV and radio, wasn't it? That was about it. Even cinema wasn't really broadcasting, but telly and radio definitely were. What's happened is that online stuff has come along. And so you get things like YouTube. Oh, sorry, just made a big bang on the mic. Never hit the mic, by the way. It's very, very poor on my part. That YouTube has come along and other online platforms. And if you do a voiceover for a commercial on there, that's going on that platform, is it broadcasting? Well, I would say it is, actually. So not that your question related to online stuff, but I think if your stuff goes online, it is a kind of broadcasting, isn't it? So when it comes to broadcasting rights, we often talk about usage. So how long is your voice going to be used for? And so certainly in TV, we talk about TVRs. Here in Britain, we do anyway. And also you have then sort of stratification. So is your job local? Is it national? So it's going on radio. Is it local radio? Is it regional? Is it national or even international? So you've got all these layers which make charging and quoting quite complicated. It's a difficult business, really, a bit of a mysterious art. And I think really when it comes to stores, which is your specific question, it's asking about is it broadcast in a store? So that's presumably when you're shopping, you can hear something go out over the tannoy and it's your voice on it, an advert or just a piece of dialogue that you've done. Should you charge broadcasting rights? And I think the answer to that is no. Well, I think it's a two-part answer, actually. I think it's no, there are no real broadcasting rights because it's not online, it's not on TV, and it's not on radio. However, I think you can charge a usage fee. So sometimes usage is a really important tool to use, a really important metric. And this often applies to commercials particularly. So if a client wants you to do something, do a TV ad or a radio commercial or whatever, you need to find out several things, really. Firstly, what platforms is it going to broadcast on? Is it going to be TV or radio? And like I said earlier, is it going to be local, regional, national, international, whatever? But also, it's the time, the length of time that is going to be broadcast for. So is it going to be on for a week, a month? Is it going to be on for several months or years even? And that will give you some leverage, I think, when it comes to charging as well. So although, Jolien, I think the answer to your question, strictly speaking, is no, it's not broadcasting. Not really. I think that there is a usage fee there, or at least you could argue for a usage fee. And you need to find out from your client how long it's going to be broadcast for. And you could have a buyout element. So it's a good bargaining tool as well. So the client may not have even thought about usage. They have thought, well, it's just going on in the store, but that might be played out. Like I say, it could be played out for a few days or a few weeks if it's a short sale or something. It might not have a very long shelf life, or it could just be repeated and repeated and repeated for months ahead or even years ahead. So usage is as important an element when it comes to charging and quoting for jobs as is the actual platform that you're on. Let's take a look at some of the other questions. What sort of software do you use for recording? Anything specific? Well, I would say if you're starting out, Audacity. It's got to be Audacity, isn't it? Excuse me, I'm just going to have a slurp. Audacity is free. I know some pros probably don't like it, but at the end of the day, you're only recording one track. You're not mixing the London Philharmonic Orchestra. You know, you're doing one thing. Occasionally, you might be asked to put some music on, but you're recording one track and you're doing some very basic editing. And Audacity is fantastic. It's got better and better over the years. It's created by computer geeks, and they're always tweaking it and so on. Now, a little caveat at the moment, and that is that the latest incarnation of the Mac operating system. So if you're on an Apple Mac, a MacBook or MacBook Pro or MacBook Air or something, or on an iMac, and you've got Catalina, which is the latest version of their operating system, unfortunately, at the moment anyway, Audacity won't play properly, or you can't record your voice properly on it. I believe there is a workaround, but it looks far too technical for a poor brain like me. So just be aware of that. But if you have got a Mac, you can use GarageBand. So GarageBand is like the free version of Logic, and Logic is the paid for version that you use on a Mac. And GarageBand is great. It's free. Again, it's built into your Mac. If you've got one, you can see the little, just locate the guitar icon, and that will give you the GarageBand option. You can record in that instead of Audacity. And hopefully at some point in the future, Audacity will be compatible with Mac again. At least let's hope it is going to happen. But if you're on Windows, which I think probably most people are, absolutely great. Audacity, the first port of call. There are other things as well. A lot of people use Adobe Audition, Twisted Wave, I think is another one. NCH Software, Australian company, runs something called WavePad, but that's a paid for service. So if you want to pay for it, of course you can. You've got a huge choice there. Reaper, quite a lot of people use Reaper. But if you're thinking, actually, I don't want to pay, thank you very much, what's around for free? Well, I would say go for Audacity. It has to be Audacity every single time. Any tips on voice acting with multiple characters in the same scene, says Funny 5 Minutes. Yeah, tricky one. That really sort of tests your acting ability, doesn't it? And I think just practice doing lots of voices. It's the fun side of voiceover, really, where you're not using your own voice. So make sure you've got a repertoire at the back of your head that you can call on. So you've got your high-pitched voice, you've got your low one, and don't just think about pitch. A lot of people make the mistake when they're creating character voices of thinking about pitch and accent. So they think, oh, right, okay, this character's got a high-pitched voice with an accent from Latvia or wherever, and this one's got a voice from, I don't know, Alaska, and it's pitched like this, much lower, or medium pitch or whatever. But a lot of people forget tempo, and tempo is really important. So I often get people saying, can you listen to my character reel? And when you listen, although there's a range of pitches and a range of accents, there isn't a range of tempos, and everything is delivered at the same speed. So don't forget pace. It's really important in voiceovers, and really important in your character voices. So practice that. Practice your tempo, going fast, very slow, medium ones. Don't stick to the same one. And of course, your accents. Have as many diverse accents as you can, and even swapping gender, things like that. You can play around with it. Just really enjoy yourself and have some fun with it. I think that's about it. We're coming to the end now, aren't we? Let's have a look. See if we've got any. I don't think so. I'm just looking down these questions now. But no, great. I think that's about it. So thanks very much for watching, really. I'm really grateful that you're there and answering your questions. And please do subscribe. And if you click the bell notification as well on the subscription on YouTube, you'll find that when I do a new video, then you should get an alert, actually. So that's really it for today. One last question from Nick Field. Any tips on learning accents? I think, again, sites like YouTube are great. Just there are some really good teachers out there, but listen to different accents as well if you can. Listen to someone who's from the northeast of England, Geordie or Liverpool, and so on. But the main thing is try not to be a stereotype. It's really important. Just try and create something that's quite unique, but is also similar to that accent. Okay, we've done our hour. So thanks very much. Look after your voice, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.